Now this is the shir of Aleph MarCheshvan. V'hine. Everything exists in equals and opposites. In other words, everything we said in this Igeres HaKedesh, beginning, let's say, from page Kuf Lametes, where the Alter Rebbe starts to develop the idea that things start off in higher worlds and they descend into lower worlds, but that in every world there is godliness, all the way down to Asiya and even in the person. The Alter Rebbe now continues and says that the energy of the Eibishter, the energy of godliness, is found even in Klippa. Yash es asora kisri de mesabu. So there are 10 crowns of Klippa. And B'chlal in Chassidus it's always brought that Klippa is called kisri, crowns. I believe it's mentioned in Tanya Perek Vov in the beginning. And the reason it's called Ksorim is because in Klippa the Chayis and the Nivra have to be separated from each other, or else it will either destroy it or be Nivla within it. So Chayis of Klippa is always indirect Makif. Umehen, and just like you had 10 spheres, in the Umazeh, it's brought down into physical Goyim, into physical Goyishkeit. And on some level also into the physical Nefesh Abamis and Gufa Vayid. Nimshaches, Nefashes, Ha'umes. It draws down the souls of the Goyim. That says in Luch HaTikun. Gamkein, that they too are klulos me'eser b'chinas elu, mamish, from these 10 spheres mamish. In other words, you have in Klippa the same things that you have in Kedusha, which means 2 things. Number one, you have all the variety in Klippa you have in Kedusha. But more significantly, you have godliness, which is the basis for everything in Klippa, just like you have it in Kedusha. And if there wouldn't be godliness in Klippa, Klippa wouldn't exist. If there wouldn't be the 10 spheres in Klippa, there wouldn't be 10 aspects in Klippa, and so forth. We all know what says in Kabbalah, pasuk on the pasuk, man is given dominance over man, and this is meant to explain Klippa is given dominance over Kedusha, or alternatively, Klippa is given the appearance of Kedusha, but safe kol safe, it's la ra'alei, it will ultimately destroy the Klippa. In other words, Hashem allows Ra to temporarily seem to be dominant over Tev, that it should be defeated. Shehu Seid Golas Hashchina, that in the interim time, that Adam of Liyumazeh, of Klippa, is dominating Adam of Kedusha. That means to say Kedusha is in a state of Golas Hashchina, v'techa Klippas and Klippas, la'achayesam, to give them life, u'la'ashlitam as managos, to give them power and dominance over everything, including over Yidden, in the times of Golas. And of course, you know what Golas means. Golas means that there's a spark of godliness which is trapped and cannot reveal itself. So there's Adam Ha'elyon, the godliness of Elkus and Kedusha, is trapped within Adam de Liyumazeh to give it power. Safe, call safe, it's going to bring the Klippa down. And therefore, Goyim dominated Yidden, liyes nefashes, ha'umes me'aklippa. A Klippa is Eibishter created Klippa and Goyim and Goyishkeit and gave them life. Asher HaShechina mislabeshes, that there's godliness from the Eibishter himself through Shechina manifest even in Goyim and Goyishkeit. Bebchinas Golos, in a way that the God is not able to reveal that it's godly, and therefore it's able to function as an entity of Klippa, at least temporarily, b'toich, inside of themselves, to dominate a Yid. The Alter Rebbe says, I admit that this is hard to understand. How could the Eibishter be entrapped? This deserves a very elaborate, involved clarification. How you could explain how godliness is inside Klippa, and the whole reality of the Klippa is coming from this godliness, and yet the Klippa is in defiance and denial of the godliness which sustains it. That's the fact. The fact is that there wouldn't be the Eibishter in Klippa, there simply wouldn't be Klippa. Ela sha'af apikein still, eina Klippes, v'ha'umes, yenkim, u'makablim chayes. You should understand, says the Alter Rebbe, that Klippa doesn't get abundant, generous, very great abundance of life. It gets a very, very small measure of Kedusha. Acherayim means not only that it gets very little, but that it gets in a very, very indirect way. Indirect means that it doesn't know where the chayis is coming from. Command the shoulder, basar kasra, like a person throws over his shoulder. When you want to give something to somebody else, and you hate him, you give it to them and you don't look at them. So you're giving them the thing, but in a way that's disconnected from you. They're not getting you at all, they're getting only the thing. That's called acharayim. The Eibishter gives chayis to Klippus in such a way that the Klippa receives it in a disconnect. In other words, it doesn't have to, and therefore it does not choose to, acknowledge that it's coming from the Eibishter, and that's what makes it klipa. I am living from the Eibishter, and my entire reality is to deny that dependency. In addition to the Acherayim, there is also the light is very, very diminished to various tzimtzumim, to the degree that it becomes possible to reveal this light in the crudeness of this world. And that's the basis for mashpas lahaumes. It gives a flow to goyim of eisha v'chaved v'chal gashma. What they received on here is incredibly abundant, but it's really from Acharayim. So there's two separate points. Now you should know, but Derech and Chasidus, these 2 points are discussed in the reverse order, and that's how it is in Perek Chav Gimel in Sefer Shalbeinim Chelak Aleph. The first is called the Ribei Tzimtzumim. The klipa gets very little chayas, but little chayas does not make it klipa yet. It makes it just very small in kamas. And the second is Acharayim. Hashem turns his back. That's how klipa could exist, because it's getting chayes from kedusha in such a way that it's able to deny that the chayes is coming from the Eibishter. Here, the Alter Rebbe chooses to first put the point of Acharayim, then put the point of Tzimtzumim, and I suppose some people would say V'tzarechiyim. In short, we're saying 2 things. If the Eibishter wouldn't be in Klipa, Klipa wouldn't exist, and yet Klipa is able to be Klipa because somehow Hashem is present within them in a completely concealed and indirect way. Mashenke Yisrael as opposed to Yidden, the Yenkim B'chinas Ponim, they get Chayes Neibishter's face, countenance. Hashem doesn't only give us, but He gives us with His face. Like if you give a person $1 whom you love, and you give them a smile, you're giving them, in terms of what they can spend, only $1, but in terms of what the gift is, you're giving them yourself, which is far more than anything. Each one according to the madregas neshama, all to the highest madregas, and but by Yehid it's been state of Gilui. So this is all the setup. And in the Mitzvah tomorrow, we begin to learn the point. The point is that since Chayas comes from the Eibishter to everything, and the Eibishter is in everything, so therefore when a person chooses to do an Aveda, there's the presence of the Eibishter in that choice, although it gets a little complicated, there's the Mitzvah Hashem in the subsequent days, the following days.